Most people believe they're in control of their lives, but that belief is an illusion. Control is not something you suddenly lose during the day. It's not lost when things go wrong, when stress appears, or when life gets chaotic. Control is lost much earlier. It's lost in the first few minutes after you wake up, before your mind has time to stabilize, before you even become fully aware of yourself. You reach for something external, your phone. And in that exact moment, something subtle but powerful happens. You don't notice it, you don't question it, but you just handed over authority. Notifications, messages, news, opinions, other people's priorities, entering your mind before your own thoughts even form. And from that point forward, your mental state is no longer self-directed. It becomes reactive. Most people never stop to examine this pattern. They wake up, scroll, absorb noise, rush, repeat, day after day. And over time, this creates something deeper than distraction. It creates dependence. Because when your mind gets used to external input as its first stimulus, it stops generating internal direction. You stop thinking. You start reacting. And the consequences are subtle, but they compound. You feel scattered without knowing why. You feel anxious without a clear cause. You struggle to focus even on simple tasks, not because you're incapable, but because your mind was never given the chance to establish control. It was interrupted before it even began. There's a critical difference most people don't understand. Some people wake up and enter chaos. Others wake up and establish order. That difference is not personality, it's not talent, it's not motivation, it's structure. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive." Most people interpret this as something soft, something inspirational. But it's not. It's a command, a reminder that the moment you wake up, you are responsible for the state of your mind. And if you don't take that responsibility immediately, something else will take it for you. Because the mind, especially in the morning, is highly receptive. It's open, unprotected. Whatever enters first shapes everything that follows. If the first input is noise, you carry noise. If the first input is stress, you carry tension. If the first input is distraction, you carry fragmentation. And most people never recover from that. They spend the entire day trying to regain clarity they lost in the first 10 minutes. But there is another way to operate. A small percentage of people live differently. They don't wake up and reach outward. They wake up and stabilize inward. They don't negotiate with their alarm clock. They don't delay action. They don't allow hesitation to dictate behavior. They act immediately. Not because they feel like it, but because they understand something most people ignore. The first decision you make in the morning is not just a task. It's an identity signal. When you delay, you reinforce hesitation. When you avoid, you reinforce weakness. When you react, you reinforce dependence. But when you act without negotiation, you reinforce control. And over time, that becomes who you are. Most people are not lacking discipline. They are practicing the wrong identity repeatedly. They are training themselves every morning to be reactive, distracted, and externally controlled. And then they wonder why their lives feel unstable. The truth is uncomfortable. If you lose control of your morning, you've already lost control of your day. Not completely, but enough to keep you average, enough to keep you reactive, enough to keep you from ever operating at full clarity. Because by the time you try to fix your focus later, the damage is already done. And once you understand that, you stop treating mornings casually. You start seeing them for what they really are, the foundation of everything.
Most people wait to feel ready. They wait for motivation. They wait for energy. They wait for the right mood to appear before they act. And because of that, they stay exactly where they are. Because motivation is unreliable. It's inconsistent. It's emotional. It depends on how you feel, and how you feel changes constantly. This is where most people misunderstand discipline. They think discipline is about pushing harder when you feel strong, but that's not discipline. That's convenience. Real discipline begins the moment you don't feel like doing something, and you do it anyway. And the morning is where this becomes visible. The alarm goes off. In that moment, there are only two forces: the version of you that wants comfort and the version of you that wants control. And they don't negotiate. One wins every single day. Most people lose this battle quietly. They don't see it as a loss. They call it just 5 more minutes. They call it, I'm tired. They call it, I'll start tomorrow. But what they're actually doing is training weakness. Because every time you hesitate, you reinforce hesitation. Every time you delay, you reinforce avoidance. Every time you negotiate with yourself, you lower your own authority. And over time, something dangerous happens. You stop trusting yourself. You say you'll wake up early, but you don't. You say you'll be disciplined, but you delay. You say you'll take control, but you react. And slowly, your mind stops believing your words. This is the real cost. Not the missed morning, not the lost time. The loss of internal credibility. Because once you don't trust your own decisions, everything becomes harder. Focus becomes harder. Consistency becomes harder. Progress becomes unstable. And people think they need more motivation to fix this. They don't. They need less negotiation. Marcus Aurelius wrote something most people ignore. At dawn, when you have trouble getting out of bed, tell yourself, I have to go to work as a human being. There is no emotion in that statement. No inspiration, no hype, no comfort. Just clarity. You have a role, and you either fulfill it or you don't. The people who operate at a higher level understand this. They don't wake up based on how they feel. They wake up based on who they decided to be. And that distinction changes everything. Because when you act based on identity, you remove emotion from the equation. You don't ask yourself, do I feel like getting up? You ask, is this what I do? And if the answer is yes, you move. No delay, no hesitation, no internal argument. That's control. And most people never reach that level because they stay trapped in emotional decision-making. They let their mood dictate their actions, and their mood is unstable, so their life becomes unstable. But the moment you shift from feeling-based action to identity-based action, something changes. You become predictable, not in a boring way, in a powerful way. You become someone who does what they said they would do, even when it's uncomfortable, even when it's inconvenient, even when no one is watching. And that builds something most people never develop: internal gravity. A kind of presence that doesn't depend on circumstances. Because your actions are no longer controlled by your environment, they are controlled by your standards. And the morning is where that standard is set. Not later, not after coffee, not after you wake up properly.
immediately. Because if you win the first decision of the day, everything that follows becomes easier. But if you lose it, you spend the rest of the day trying to recover from it. And most people never fully do.
There's something most people are completely unaware of. They think their problem is lack of focus. They think their problem is distraction. But that's not the real issue. The real issue is that their mind is not theirs in the first place. Because the moment they wake up, they give access. Access to noise, access to other people's opinions, access to information they didn't choose consciously. And once that happens, their internal state is no longer stable. It becomes influenced. Most people don't notice how fast this happens. They open their phone for a few seconds, and suddenly they're thinking about things that have nothing to do with their life. Someone else's success, someone else's problem, some random news, some irrelevant information. And just like that, their mind is fragmented, not fully focused on anything, just pulled in different directions. This is why silence in the morning is so powerful, and also why most people avoid it. Because silence forces you to face your own thoughts. No distraction, no stimulation, no escape. Just you and whatever is inside your head. And for most people, that's uncomfortable. Because when the noise disappears, what's left is confusion. Unprocessed thoughts, emotions they've been avoiding, mental clutter they never dealt with. So they reach for something external again, not because they need it, but because they're trying to escape themselves. And this is where they lose control, not physically, mentally. Because once you rely on external input to regulate your internal state, you become dependent. You need noise to feel normal. You need stimulation to feel focused. You need distraction to avoid discomfort. And over time, your ability to think independently starts to weaken. You don't sit with ideas anymore. You scroll past them. You don't reflect. You react. You don't control your attention. It gets pulled constantly. And attention is everything. What you focus on shapes how you think. How you think shapes how you act. And how you act shapes your entire life. So if your attention is unstable, your life becomes unstable. This is why the first hour of the morning matters more than people think. Because it's the only moment where your mind is naturally reset, before the world interferes, before other people's priorities enter, before distraction takes over. And what you do with that hour determines the quality of your thinking for the rest of the day. Most people waste it. They fill it immediately. They eliminate any chance of clarity before it even has time to form. But the people who operate differently, they protect it. They don't rush into noise. They don't rush into input. They sit in silence, even if it feels uncomfortable at first, even if their thoughts are messy, because they understand something important. Clarity doesn't come from consuming more. It comes from allowing space. Space to think. Space to observe. Space to process. And that space only exists when there is no noise. This is where real control begins. Not when you force yourself to focus, but when you remove what's constantly breaking your focus. Most people try to improve productivity later in the day, but by then, their mind is already overloaded, already fragmented, already reactive, and they're trying to fix a problem that started hours earlier. The people who stay sharp don't fix their focus later. They protect it from the start. They don't allow their mind to be hijacked, because once it is, it takes much more effort to regain control. And most people don't have that level of awareness, so they stay stuck. Not because they lack ability,
but because they never created the conditions for clarity. And without clarity, everything becomes harder. Decision-making, focus, discipline, consistency, all of it depends on one thing: a mind that is actually yours. And for most people, it isn't.
At this point, the pattern should be clear. Most people don't lose control suddenly. They lose it quietly, in small decisions that seem insignificant. Hitting snooze, reaching for the phone, filling their mind with noise before it even stabilizes. And because these actions feel normal, they never question them. But normal doesn't mean harmless. It just means common. And most common behaviors lead to average results. The truth is simple, but uncomfortable. Your life is not shaped by your big decisions. It's shaped by what you do when no one is watching, especially in the first hour of your day. Because that's when your standards are revealed. Not what you say you'll do, not what you plan to do, but what you actually do, without pressure, without accountability, without an audience. That's who you are. And most people don't like that idea. Because it removes excuses. It removes external blame. It forces responsibility back to where it belongs. On you. But this is also where control begins. Not when things are easy. Not when you feel motivated. But when you decide that your standards are not negotiable. The people who operate differently don't rely on feeling ready. They rely on structure. They've removed the need to decide every morning. They already decided. And now they execute. No internal debate, no hesitation, no emotional interference. Because they understand something most people avoid. Every decision you delay is a decision you already made. When you hesitate to get up, you chose comfort. When you scroll instead of thinking, you chose distraction. When you avoid silence, you chose escape. And those choices repeat, day after day, until they form a pattern, and that pattern becomes your identity. This is why change feels difficult, not because the actions are hard, but because the identity is already established. You've practiced being a certain type of person for too long, and now anything different feels unnatural. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. It just means it requires awareness, and more importantly, consistency. You don't change your life in one morning, but you do reveal your direction. Because the way you start your day is the direction you're moving in. If you start with control, you move toward discipline. If you start with distraction, you move toward instability. And over time, those directions become outcomes. Most people are not aware of this process, so they keep repeating the same mornings, expecting different results. They want clarity, but choose noise. They want discipline, but choose comfort. They want control, but avoid responsibility, and nothing changes. But the moment you become aware of this, you can't ignore it anymore. You start to see the pattern. You start to recognize the moments where you used to act unconsciously, and now you have a choice. Not a big, dramatic choice, a simple one. Tomorrow morning, when the alarm goes off, when your mind is still quiet, when no one is watching, what are you going to do? Reach outward and lose control? Or stay present and take it? Because that moment decides more than you think. Not just your morning, but the person you're becoming. And once you understand that, you stop treating it lightly. You stop negotiating. You stop waiting. And you start acting.